and he wanted to die. Not suicidal, but he said, Lord, take me. Well, that's pretty bad. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting, you know, people have different trials, right? We've all had different things we've gone through. And, you know,
You give me part of my lesson, we all have trials.
Someone may lose their job and struggle financially, and another person may lose a son. And you think about, you know, you have family trials, you have financial trials, you have bodily trials, and, you know, all the different things we could go through. He went through it all in a short period of time. And it's easy to fast forward to the end and think, yeah, but he trusted in the Lord and he never gave up. But man, there's a period there where it was really dark, and he was grieving and you know, really in a lot of despair. And you have to remember how hard it was for him.
One of our lessons today is what the Lord told Joseph Smith: no matter our trials, we're not yet as Job. Remember that. We'll have things, but we're not yet as Job. Anyone else? Who did?
I think it's interesting always to question and have the answer of why. Why is it happening? So I think for Job, most of these things that happened to him were in a short period of time, which then casts the impression that God did that.
Yep.
God let it happen. Why? Why did he? So he had to go through that whole process. I don't think I could do it.
No. Why me? No.
Yeah. What would I do? What would I do? But you really don't have to worry about it today. You just worry about today and not what's going to happen in the future.
But we're jumping ahead. In the end, how was Job blessed? And you remember that? Double. The Lord gave him double back. He gave him back 10 more children, double his sheep, and that. So he was blessed in the long run, but he did not know at the time that he was going to do it. Now, what do you want to do for a minute? Sometimes we think of trials as just one or two people. You know someone well known, even in the church, has had trials and setbacks. You're one. He'll move fast. He's a runner.
One of my favorite apostles, President Kimball,
Yes.
he had trials.
Yes, he did. What were his trials?
He actually had boils too.
Yes, and when he lost his voice,
Cancer.
yes, he lost his voice, was giving a speech down BYU and couldn't speak.
Right. But he still did it. That's what I admired him. He still, you know, did
He
it.
tried. He said, here I am, the voice of the Lord. I don't have a voice. So he struggled with that. Okay, anyone else you can think about? What president of the church, I didn't know this, what president of the church had major problems, health and physical, during most of his life? You know? George Albert Smith, only studying, 8th president. He started off young. The president, when he was an apostle, he had to be hospitalized for 3 months while he was an apostle. He felt bad because he thought he was putting too much work on all the other apostles. At one time, he didn't want to die, but he thought he should just leave this earth. So they could call him another apostle. He and his wife prayed about it now, and answer came back no. A few years later, he was called to be president of the church. So he didn't know what was ahead of him. So just go ahead, go back and study George Albert Smith. I don't know all the things he went through with his major troubles. Anyone else recently? Please.
I thought it was interesting when I was reading about Job that Satan made it look like God caused all those things. That fire came from heaven and burned up the sheep and all the animals. That wind came out of nowhere and knocked down the house. And so from Job's point of view, it looked like God was punishing him. But wasn't.
Right? What? A current apostle in 2012 gave a talk about depression that really opened up things in the church. Remember who it was? No.
Elder
Holland. Jeffrey R. Holland gave a talk, and yeah.
Well, I remember when President Hunter fell down at the podium.
Yes.
I mean, how strange and awful was that? And he still went on, and he spent his time preaching and helping the church, and I guess he was only president for, what, 9 months, something like that.
Well, most of the general authorities I look for, you have to grow old in front of the whole church. We don't have to do that. We can kind of conceal. But it would be difficult to be a president of the church. And several of them, everybody couldn't give their speeches. I think President McCabe got to the point where he couldn't give his speeches, but they've all done well now. Who gave that talk in 2012? Jeffrey R. Holland. And he opened up depression discussion in the church, because he talked about a time when he was depressed, and he said he went through it for the talk he gave is as a broken vessel, if you want to go back and read it. But since then, that talk opened up for a lot of people in the church. That depression is normal. I've got a book there that says everyone experiences depression at some time in their life. You believe that? To some degree or another. Everyone. So we want to have anybody share your time. Or if you haven't been depressed, get ready. I went through a little depression after my mission. I won't tell the details of it, but one of the girl who broke up told me she didn't want to marry me. 4 months depression. Looked at out west, she would not want to marry me, but just a few months later, at BYU, there she was. but I laid in bed at night. So I had my depression. And, that talk by Elder Holland as a broken vessel. Go back and look it up. It's on the internet. But he opened up and confessed to the whole church that he had gone through a period of depression. Elder Holland was one of the popular speakers. He lingered with him several months, back and forth. It's when they were newlyweds going to college. So now we understand. He said, we didn't have a lot of money, and I was working, my wife was working, but most people don't know about Elder Holland. Well, okay, we got the handout ready? Okay, let's pass out the handout we made. Okay, my 2 granddaughters. We're going to pass it out. One of you come down here. Annie, Leah, one of you come down here and start from the front. My wife has provided pencils to anybody who needs them today. Okay, you can read this over. I typed it out, my wife corrected all the mistakes. Made it look good. But Joe has had impact on this church, starting with Joseph Smith. And we read in D&Z 121, "Oh God, where art thou?" That's Joseph Smith, and that's a prayer I contend, because everybody asked. Y'all, but it's not, where is there a God? But where are you? Why are we going? Why am I going through what I'm going through? So if you feel that, that's normal. So we talk about some of the trials that Job had. Do any of you know, just briefly, any other trials some of your friends have had, major trials? Any you can think of it? Yes, please. Go ahead.
One of Job's comments that stuck out to me was when he said, "My greatest fears have come to pass."
Yeah.
And what I fear the most in life may be different than the person sitting across from me or behind me. But it caused me to ask myself, what are some of the things that I fear the most? And what would I do? How would I react if those worst fears came to pass? Would I draw closer to God and seek His help and support? Or would I then become bitter and angry and reject Him and pull away? And I think it's a question worth asking ourselves, what is it that we fear the most, and what would I do? How would I act in that situation?
Okay, do any of you know of any friends or family members who've gone through major depression for various reasons? And, it's normal, depression, remember, everybody gets depressed to some degree. Yes?
During my mission, we had 2 missionaries in prison unjustly for 6 months. And during that time in prison, one of the elders had a really rough time with personal depression, and he failed. And he failed himself, he failed the church, he failed his family, and really struggled. But I was also towards the end of that 6 months that he had some spiritual experiences which answered his questions or his situation and helped him to understand what he was going through.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And the lesson is God will help us, you and me and others, through our trials and tribulations if they trust in Him. One other, when we lived down in Orem, I've never been able to reconcile this. Well, some of our friends went up Provo Canyon to have a picnic. Had the grandmother there. While they were there, a tree fell over and killed the grandmother. Now, to this day, I can't figure out why did that happen. Why did the tree fall down? Nobody knows. They couldn't answer it. The family couldn't answer it. But that was one of the things that sometimes we just don't know the origin of why some of these things happen, but some of them do. Okay. Number one, the third question, we won't have a show of hands. Well, what trials have you had or could have in the future? Get ready. The lesson is everybody has trials of one kind or another. There'll be setbacks. And so, some of us will say, "Oh God, there art thou," or we're not yet at Job. Now, number 3. I put this in there. At the end of Job's life, the Lord told him to deal with these problems and gird up your loins. I put the definition in there. Can you read what it means? Get ready. Go ahead.
Our Savior. And they also say that Job's story is just a fiction of somebody's imagination. And so they're getting away from the scriptures, and they need us to testify to them.
Yes.
The truthfulness of Job, of Christ, and to the kingdom.
You remind me, did Jesus ever get discouraged? Can you think of somebody He said right toward the end of His life showed some degree of discouragement? Could it be possible to let this cup pass from me? And then what did He say on the cross? "Oh God, why hast thou forsaken me?" So there's a human side of Jesus came out, and I don't think we fully understand what crucifixion meant. It was painful for Him as a mortal, even though He was not totally mortal, but He had His moments. Okay. gird up your loins, get ready for, prepare for action. I did not know, but that gird up your loins was quoted 11 times in the document. She looked up where it is. I had all the references here, but my wife took them out. She said, you got too much on hand. You can let them up. But do we have to gird up, prepare for action in this day and age? The things ahead. Get ready. One of the scriptures even says, get ready, man. That's modern language, isn't it? Where's my athletes in here? When you go to halftime, what does the coach say to you? They say, gird up your loins. They say other words. Never act like more.
Let's go.
Well, let's go. What else? Do they ever use? They don't say gird up your loins. We gotta get out there and get ready for what's ahead. The difficult second half ahead of us. But they could use the gird up your loins, but that was frequently given. Was the twice is called the shoulder during this trial. Gird up your loins. Get ready. You're going to have these experiences, but prepare for them. Okay, now, yes, I did not know number 4. Become aware of the word in number 30. It was first titled, All is Well, All is Well. And then it was changed to Come to the Saints. Any of you know first titled, All is Well, go ahead.
Excuse me. My mother always referred to Job in his life. And that's one of the things that helped him most.
Okay, yeah, number 7. We're urged to get the patience of Job. I did not know that was quoted in the book of James. So Job has had this, what would you call it? Or, for many years, we're supposed to develop the patience of Job. Now, you may know the histories, how Come Ye Saints was written. It's a powerful, and it was originally titled All is Well, All is Well. I did not know that. It was changed to Come Ye Saints. But how is it? Who wrote it? William Clayton. What was going on in his life? That he was happy that something happened back in Nauru. Do any of you know? His wife was expecting a child, but he was gone ahead, and she had to stay behind. She was pregnant, pretty close to birth. And then he got this letter saying his wife had had the baby. He said it was in fact that he had published it. But she was sick still from the pregnancy, but he wrote down, All is well, all is well. And if you read Come Ye Saints, what does it finish with? At the end of every verse, all is well, all is well. So we're just encouraged in our life to always say, all is well, all is well. It's very difficult time. I did not know, number 5, that Job was responsible for one of the hymns that's popular, I Know My Redeemer Lives. Did you know? That's a quote from Job, but the one who wrote it was written in 1650. We don't know that he was referring to Job's quote, but I Know My Redeemer Lives is very popular in the church and out, but that's actually a quote from Job. So from Job we get in Genesis 1:21, now we're not yet as Job. We get gird up by loins. We get the hymn, the patience of Job. And it says at the bottom, Job was the world's most patient man known in history. That's a quote. So, what? Paisley, we're going to leave this on. Pardon. Okay, and we got the number here. It's on number 30. Okay, we're going to sing all four verses, and then we're gonna emphasize at the end, all is well, all is well. As a happy day, all is well, so well, as a summary, just repeat often, all is well, learn about William Clayton singing it when his wife was in trouble. We'll have similar trials and tribulations in our life, but we have to gird up our loins, prepare for them. And if you haven't had any trials or tribulations, raise your hand. I did it. But if you face them, they're normal. Everyone has them. And this hymn has helped a lot of people deal with it, and all is well, all is well. And I repeat, this is a lot of them. If you can't remember anything else, just gird up your loins, hang that on your wall, and then repeat often, thou art not dead, Job. I hope you read over Job and study it more. There's a lot more to it. But these are the things our lesson wanted us to deal with, is overcoming stress and trials in our life. And we all do that. That's what life is about. But we can make it with the Lord's help. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.